Boys and girls, girls and boys, thank you for joining me once again, where Richard Burgess has been responding to yours truly on the interwebs. I always take advice from young men like Richard Burgess, and I use the term advisedly, who have no more than a high school diploma behind them and no credence whatsoever to speak in the field of nutrition. This is a boy that doesn't even understand that a cat is an obligate hypercarnivore, and that if you feed a cat a vegan diet, the cat will die, which is what happened, isn't it, Richard? Dear oh dear. Anyway, let's move on with this video and associated comments that Richard's made. Responding to shorts, actually. There are some interesting comments here. So the first one here is from some turd. The big old carnivore cope of association doesn't equate causation. To which somebody very, very brilliant has responded saying, so you call science cope, lol. Correlation and causation is what every scientist learns in minute one. Correct. So yes, scientific facts are now cope, according to the veg-tarded community. Interesting. How the fuck can anyone take BK seriously, ? Smiley happy laughy face. Well, that's obvious to anyone with more than 3 brain cells why you should take me seriously regarding science, nutrition, physiology, and those kind of issues. The very thing I spent 20 years at the coalface of the academic industry working in, ergo, I have a very significant background in those fields. That's why you would take me seriously in those fields, despite any presentation style or characterization I might adopt in my videos. That's why. Next comment, funny how Bart says there's no science on any aspect of nutrition, yet he's always promoting products from the supplement company he's partnered with. Well, somebody then has replied to that saying, there's no contradiction here. I don't know what you find funny exactly. I agree, there is no contradiction. There is still no science regarding any aspect of human nutrition available. There are only inferences, which are weak at best, poorly controlled, poorly disciplined, poorly put together, poorly executed, and poorly communicated to the lay public regarding. That has nothing to do, whatever, with whether or not it seems that the product with which I am associated does what it says it does, because there is inference that it does, and whether or not it's associated with better outcomes health-wise in people, which it is. So, there's that one dealt with. Why does VG react to Bart Kay if he's too afraid to front up to a debate? Anyways, well, Richard Burgess is too afraid to front up to a debate with Rachel. Rachel who's great, Rachel who's awesome and knows what she's talking about, but Rachel who wouldn't strike fear into the heart of somebody the way I definitely should, Richard. But if you're so brave as to respond to me in video, that's fine, but why don't you front up face to face where I can actually respond to your responses to your face so that we can get your reactions to my reactions? It'll be much more fun. You'll get huge viewer numbers. Are you that stupid, Richard? It seems you are. Anyway, so somebody said true. Good, good. And then somebody else has said money. Well, what about it? Then somebody else says Bart Kay doxes the people he debates if he loses, which is false. I've never doxed anybody ever under any circumstances, and I've also never publicly lost a debate on any aspect of human nutrition, human physiology, or any of those things, which is what the next comment says. It says, no, he doesn't, because he never loses, which is correct. And then it says, also, this is one of the worst excuses I've ever heard. Yes, me too. And that's the end of the comments on this video. So that being said, let's actually have a look at what Richard Burgess had to say and put it right where it's wrong, shall we? Right, let's crack on.
Reduction in idiopathic constipation in their population, according to the reduction fibre, to the point where every single participant got a 100% remission of all symptomology on a zero fibre diet.
That's not true.
Yes, it is true, Richard. The paper that I'm referring to there is the one that is covered most eloquently, I think, by Dr. Paul Mason some years ago. And what I've just described, the findings of that study, for whatever it's worth, is correct. I have correctly reported the findings of that study.
If you actually look at the results, they were still having less frequent bowel movements.
That's not what was reported or talked about in the study, and that's not what I have suggested, anything about frequency. What I have suggested is that that paper reported a complete remission of all symptomologies that were listed in that study as the outcome variables. And less frequency of bowel movement is fine, Richard.
Compared to the average American population.
So what? Who says average is ideal? It isn't. It absolutely isn't. Demonstrably, clearly, unequivocally.
And by the way, this was a very small trial.
Yes, about N equals 62 or 63. So what? There are no other studies or trials that are even remotely pseudo-clinical. This is the only one we know about where people's outcomes were traced under some kind of observation and control.
Like what, it had 20 people in it or something?
No, 62 or 63 in fact, Richard. If you're going to comment about what a paper says, perhaps you should know what it actually says.
Tough to ignore, Peter.
Well, whatever your study showed, you know, that's good for that one research study, but I can tell you there's a lot of data, and I can't get...
Yeah, people who eat more fiber have more frequent bowel movements.
So what, Richard? More frequent is not better.
Fiber prevents constipation.
No, it doesn't, Richard. If anything, fiber has the exact opposite effect, as shown quite clearly in the study that we are currently debating. So you haven't even read the thing, as usual. Or maybe it's got too many words bigger than wheelbarrow, Richard, which is not a surprise, given your, sum total of qualifications is, do you even hold a high school diploma, Richard? No, probably not. Okay, let alone any actual study.
But a pile of data that is crap, Peter, means you have a pile of crap. It's just a big pile of crap, isn't it? Again, science is a discipline.
And fiber.
Well, no, it's funny, isn't it? But science is...
Bart Kay is just a fucktard.
No, in fact, it's Richard Burgess projecting that. Richard Burgess is the most arrogant, ignorant imbecile I have come across in quite some time. And that is saying something. That is really saying something. So anyway, let's actually deal with the subject matter.
Well, it is the case that people that have low blood cholesterol are less likely to have myocardial infarction.
Rubbish.
False.
Okay.
Peter. Absolute nonsense.
Please explain to me why statins, PCSK9 inhibitors, other cholesterol-lowering medication...
Which other ones, Richard? You've mentioned two. Which other ones?
And just genetic polymorphisms that lower cholesterol.
They don't, Richard. Okay, so the first two drugs that you actually named there, statins and PCSK9 inhibitors, they are both anti-inflammatory, which is a serendipitous effect of those drugs. It wasn't the intent of those drugs, but they have that effect short-term, which can have an effect on which can apparently have an effect on the rate of secondary events, but not primary events, and only in men over a certain age, Richard. And it's not cause and effect because it's a prospective cohort study, which we all know are absolute rubbish. In terms of the polymorphisms, Richard, if you'd actually read any of those studies, you'd understand that none of those studies actually measured anybody's cholesterol at any point ever. Okay, so before you start casting aspersions and making out like you're the one that understands this, and I'm not, when you've got a high school diploma and no ability to read science, and I'm a professor of health science with 20 years experience in this field, it really just goes to show how serious your psychological problems are. Your arrogance, your hubris, and your Dunning-Kruger's son. Come and front me face to face if you want to argue with me about the science, boy.
All of these populations have lower instances of myocardial infarction.
No, they don't, in fact. Not meaningfully at all. They have statistically shown differences. The way to show a statistical difference is to have a large sample size, which can then deem a very, very small actual change in signal to be statistically significant, but they cannot show clinical significance because of signal-to-noise ratio, a very basic factor in statistical inference, Richard, which if you had any training in statistics, which you do not, you'd understand.
Absolute rubbish. False. Sorry. I can't let you get away with that.
And he has no argument?
I just gave it to you, Richard. And in fact, in the discussion I had with Peter Rogers on the day, we did go on to discuss it. This is a short, Richard. It's an advertisement for a longer video, which you probably should have watched, because then you would have seen how incredibly hopeless, useless, brainless, and clueless Peter Rogers is. Because I absolutely handed him his ass.
I think there is data to back that up.
No, there isn't. There is adjusted associative data sets that show...
All data is associative.
Correct. Some of it, however, is properly controlled and is able to show cause and effect, but not in nutrition science, not in physiological science, not in populations of subjects that are vastly complex, multifaceted living organisms with innumerable degrees of freedom, Richard. So yes, all data is associative. Ergo, all the kind of data that you're looking at is all incapable of informing on cause or effect. Period. End of discussion.
whether it's from a randomized trial, a perspective.
There are no properly randomized trials, properly controlled trials on any aspect of hard health outcome in human beings as that relates to any aspect of human nutrition whatsoever. Still, Richard.
Cohort, it's all associative.
Correct. So what?
Oh, I don't know what he fucking means by that.
You don't know basically dick about fuck, Richard. That's your problem. You don't understand the basic tenets of science. Neither do you understand your place in the so-called, I guess, hierarchy of individuals who understand science, which is fucking nowhere. You're a boy with a high school diploma if you're lucky. Remember? It's no surprise that you can't get your head around this. You don't even understand, as I said earlier, that a cat should not eat a vegan diet.
So piss weak associations at best.
These are results from randomized trials.
So what?
So no, they're not weak associations.
Yes, they are, Richard, still. And the fact that you're talking about so-called randomized trials does not affect the strength of association reported. That's not the point. The strength of association stands alone, and it's piss weak. Still, anyone with any understanding of statistics, i.e. not you, Richard, gets that.
Even after being adjusted. And even if you were correct and there was a strong association between cholesterol, I don't even know how we got onto that topic, but between cholesterol and heart disease, that is still an association.
All of it is an association.
Correct, yes, Richard. And so therefore you're just bolstering my point, not arguing with it, you stupid boy.
You can you determine causal relationships with associations.
No, you don't, Richard. Not at all. Wrong. So you don't even understand the first tenets of science, you ridiculous fucksplat.
Bart Kay is so stupid.
No, projection again there, Richard. It's very, very clear he's stupid. Oh, hi, everybody. I'm going to sit here in the dark being a fat fuck who doesn't understand anything about anything, and I'm going to take shots at a highly published, well-known professor of health science because I believe I know more than he does. Stupid boy.
It's butyrate, if you want to be really, really accurate. And the first metabolic step that occurs to that butyrate before it's metabolically useful is it's transmuted enzymatically to beta-hydroxybutyrate, which, Peter, can also be absorbed by the same enteric cells from the blood supply side in a person that eats no fibre or carbohydrates to speak of, can't it? Also, short-chain fatty acids are available in butter. So we don't.
Yeah, butter isn't good for you.
Yes, it is, Richard. You stupid, ignorant, pathetic cunt trumpet.
Don't need fibre for that either, actually. That's why I'm not constipated full of colon.
This is like saying I don't need to eat fruits and vegetables because I smoke crystal meth and crystal meth has vitamin C in it.
No, it's not like saying that at all, Richard. It's nothing remotely similar to saying anything like that at all. Wrong.
Make crystal meth good for you, assuming it had vitamin C.
No, it doesn't. Completely fucking ridiculous, you stupid boy.
I'm dead about 9 years, 11 months, and 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Well, you have to take what you've got and make the most sense you can out of what
you've
got.
You've repeatedly said that, and I've repeatedly corrected you because it's false. Okay?
No, it's not.
What you have to do, Peter, is refrain from making conclusions that are not supportable with evidence. Because, if nothing else, the Hippocratic Oath demands that of you. It says first do no harm. And if you tell somebody that they need to go on a vegan diet for their lifespan, because that, in your opinion, is the healthiest diet for a human.
Longest living population on the planet is the Californian Adventist vegetarians.
No, it isn't, Richard. It's the Hong Kong population, in fact. You don't even have your basic statistics to hand, do you? It's the Hong Kong population, in fact. And they eat more meat than anybody else, Richard. And even so, both those populations have many degrees of freedom, don't they? These are both associations, neither of which can establish cause nor effect. You fucking moron.
By the way.
You are doing that person harm, unequivocally, because that is not an appropriate diet long-term throughout the lifespan for a human being. Demonstrate.
Cool story, dude.
It's not a story, it's a fact. We don't need, once again, to go through and list the nutrition deficiencies that a vegan diet produces. These are all established facts, Richard.
It's not my opinion. 84% quit rate.
There is not an 84% quit rate.
Yes, there is, Richard, still. Even though you don't like that, that is still what there is.
The vegan diet.
Yes, there is, Richard, still.
He's talking about the Phonolytics survey. What they did was they made a questionnaire asking people what foods they eat. And I think the vegan group wasn't even, like, what they claimed was a vegan group. One, they were only talking about diet, so that doesn't mean they refrained from, you know, buying leather, fur.
What the fuck has that got to do with the price of fish in China in 1965, you ridiculous cunt?
You know, stuff like that. Things that vegans wouldn't buy. They only asked about their diet.
So fucking what?
So these weren't even necessarily vegans.
Oh, they never were vegans and they did it wrong. Okay, good. Thanks, Richard. Stupid cunt. Cowardly cunt. Pathetic, cowardly, ridiculous boy. Come and front me for a debate, sunshine. We'll deal with it. And I will show absolutely, clearly and unequivocally how completely unarmed for a battle of wits with me you are. You do not even have command of the first tenets of science. You have no business arguing with me, or anybody else, in fact, about science, statistics, inference, or anything else.
And I think they also defined vegan as a category as eating like less than one animal product.
Nobody gives a fuck what they think, Richard, and nobody who has any brain cells at all gives a fuck what you think about anything either.
Per month, something like that. So again, it had nothing to do with veganism. And
they had nothing to do with veganism. They did it wrong. They never really were. Yeah. Okay. Who's coping now, turd?
And that 84% quit rate, that's coming from each diet duration.
No, it isn't, Richard. Still.
Category. So
no, it isn't. Still.
They categorize people who followed a diet for like 3 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, something like that. And they totaled the total amount of people who quit in each duration category.
Yes.
That's how they got to the 84% figure.
84% within 5 years. Yeah.
Once you got up to, I think, like 2 years, the majority of people who were on that diet stayed on the diet.
So fucking what? That has no impact on the correctness of the statement that the finding was that within 5 years of starting a vegan diet, 84% of people quit. Still. My God, how is this too hard to understand?
So at like 2 years, it was something like 60% of people stayed.
Have you got anything worthwhile to say on any subject whatsoever, Richard Burgess? No.
5 years, it was like 80%. 10
This is why Richard won't front me for a debate, because he knows absolutely exactly how many new assholes I'll tear him.
years.
With ease, without breaking a sweat.
It was like 90%. So that's misleading.
No, it's not, Richard. What's misleading is everything you say on every topic, including the statement made by you that you are remotely competent to speak publicly to people on any aspect of science, nutrition, physiology, or any related subject whatsoever. You pathetic, cowardly, ignorant, arrogant boy.
Meat doesn't contain.
Let me see.
Meat doesn't contain vitamin C.
Yes, it does. False.
It contains vitamin C in very low quantities.
Luckily, that's the exact quantity required by people who consume a diet which does not contain carbohydrates, plant material, etc. That's why we're not all dropping dead of scurvy, you stupid cunt.
So again.
You're not gonna get vitamin C from meat.
Wrong. Completely false. Lie.
You're not gonna get fiber from meat, which
You don't need any fiber in your diet. Not.
Yes, you don't need anything that reduces your risk of heart disease.
There are no studies that can inform on risk, Richard. None at all. Not even the risk in a population, let alone anybody's individual risk of anything whatsoever. Prospective cohort studies are incapable of informing on risk still.
diabetes and cancer and makes you live longer. That's right.
Makes you live longer is a cause and effect statement, Richard. It's false. It's not supported by data. And you are pathetic, desperate. You're a sad turd, basically. You're a tubby pile of excrement, basically. You're an offensive cunt.
You can just choose to eat a shitty diet.
1 gram ever.
A shitty diet, Richard, is the one that you feed yourself, your family, and your cat that died. Remember? That's a shitty diet. Literally.
It's the same requirement as for carbohydrates.
So important for helping you rebuild your gut health.
No, it isn't. False again.
And you're also not going to get antioxidants. Important.
Don't need foodborne antioxidants.
Yes, you don't need antioxidants.
I didn't say that. I said you don't need foodborne antioxidants, Richard. I said that because it's scientifically demonstrable and correct. And your opinion on that matter is exactly as valuable as your opinion on any other matter. Not valuable. You are a boy with a high school diploma and no fucking idea what he's talking about whatsoever. Still.
Can age faster?
Yes, and maybe not too, because actually antioxidant activity is taken care of in the human body if you do the right things in a way that has nothing whatever to do with your nutrition, in fact.
Can increase your risk of cancer?
No, there are still no studies that can inform on risk of anything, let alone cancer, and certainly not anybody's individual risk.
Heart disease?
No, false again, wrong.
You can make yourself more prone to neuropsychiatric disorders?
Says this boy who clearly has very, very serious psychological problems, as clearly demonstrated multiple times throughout his history. Sure, I have a little fun little play act that I do in terms of the way I present myself on YouTube, but this boy doesn't. He's just a loon. He's an absolute fucking loon. He's already actually had his channel completely wiped once, and it should have remained wiped. The only reason he got it back is because he was syndicated with a bigger channel that went into bat for him. Let's not forget that, okay? Anyone that wants to decide which of the two of us is a loon, all they need to do is look at the actual videos and understand them for what they are, and you'll see which one of us is a loon.
Yes, that's true.
Actually do get antioxidants from meat anyway, by the way. So
you really don't.
You really still do, Richard, even though your opinion on that tells you that you don't, without any actual substance or knowledge to underpin your ridiculous fucking opinion. The thing about opinions, Richard Burgess, is they're just like assholes, in that almost everybody's got one, and it's full of shit. All right? What's next?
They're minuscule quantities.
wrong again.
Meat does.
Bart Kay is a fucking moron. Thanks.
No, it's still Richard Burgess that's the moron. It's still Richard Burgess projecting. It's still Richard Burgess hiding in the shadows, taking pot shots at me without the courage of his conviction to front me face to face for what I can have, if he wants, to be a reasonable discussion without insulting him, without playing this character. I can just deal with the science, if you like, Richard, because you have no fucking idea about any of it. You have a bunch of mindless opinions without substance. And you have arrogance beyond fucking belief, son. Again, come and front me for a debate on pretty much any topic you choose, really, to do with human nutrition or human health, the science underpinning it, statistical inference, all that kind of stuff. You are completely out of your depth, son. I will tear you to pieces. That's why you're not fronting up. Nothing to do with doxing. I've never doxed anybody ever. Why would I? To what fucking possible end? For a start, it's illegal. And for a finish, what does that gain me? You're pathetic, Richard. You're a coward. You're a turd. You're an arrogant fuck. You are basically a complete fucking waste of oxygen. All right. Join me next time when someone will be not quite as offensive and stupid as Richard Burgess. All right. Be good. Ciao for now.